Good morning. This is Erica with Launching Legacies. Welcome to our daily devotional. Today we are going to continue our devotional on feet, and we're going to talk about hairy feet. Of course, I'm not going to show you any hairy feet. It's kind of a joke. Instead, we're going to talk about a passage in the Bible that has to do with hair and feet in the same story. So let's get started. We're going to look at Luke, the 7th chapter, the 36th through the 39th verse. So the 36th verse in the New Living Translation says, one of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him. So Jesus went to his home and sat down to eat. And when a certain immoral woman from that city heard that he was eating there, she brought a beautiful alabaster jar with expensive perfume. And then she knelt behind him at his feet, weeping. Her tears fell on his feet, and she wiped them off with her hair. Then she kept kissing his feet and putting perfume on them. And when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know that this woman touching him is a sinner. And Jesus answered his thoughts. Simon, he said to the Pharisee, I have something to say to you. Go ahead, teacher, Simon replied. So we're at the 41st verse, sorry. And then Jesus told him the story of a man who loaned money to 500 pieces of silver and 50 pieces to another man. And I won't get into that story, but the summary here is that he's saying, listen, I've come to help the people who are sinners. Right? Like that, for one, we're all sinners, and two, I've come to help the sinners, not to just help the people that you think I would help. So what's the concept of the hairy feet? Well, it's in the story, right? When this woman sees that Jesus is there, she knows about his character. She knows what he's done and what he's represented. Like, he's been gracious and he's been kind and he's healed the sick and he's helped the people who have needed help. And so she goes to him with this expectation of blessing him. And so we know that she takes out an alabaster box. They call her an immoral woman. Most people believe that means that she was involved in prostitution or something that would have been visually immoral. But, at this point, I want to just clarify that a lot of people do immoral things in secret, and we don't always know about it. Somehow people seem to have knowledge of this woman's immorality. So many people hypothesize that she was a prostitute or so on and so forth. But that's without regard for this lesson. At this point, we know, though, she's broken and she's been shamed in her community. And she comes to Jesus and she has this alabaster box with perfume in it. And so it's also hypothesized that this would be like the fragrance of like frankincense, possibly myrrh, or some other essential oils that are perfumed. And that they would have been what women usually use to prepare for like weddings, like a big deal. Like you would buy it and it would cost a lot, and so it's very expensive. Anyhow, she brings her alabaster box and she's crying and weeping and anointing Jesus's feet and wiping it with her hair. So we assume she had a good amount of hair. She's laying at his feet and wiping his feet with her hair, and thus hairy feet. But what is the significance of this story with regard to feet? Because the feet have a significant reference in the Bible, and we've already talked about several different passages with it. But here we see the significance is this concept of humility, right? She doesn't know Jesus personally, or at least from this passage we can see that she doesn't, because she heard that he was going to be there, and she comes and anoints him. She doesn't know him personally. She knows of his character, right? She knows what he's done, and what he symbolizes is grace, right? For this person who's a pariah and who is already, quote unquote, an immoral woman, she knows that he represents some sense of freedom, right? Or liberty from the life that other people have imposed upon her, or that she's imposed upon herself, or to whatever situation she's in. Jesus clearly represents some hope for her, and she sees him and she's excited, and she has this expensive perfume and she pours it on his feet and she washes his feet with her tears. So she is disturbed. She has been broken, and she is clearly emotional about the circumstances of her life. We don't get really a lot about it in this particular passage, but we know what it's like to be, I know what it's like. I would assume most people would know what it's like to be a pariah, to be outcast, to not be a part of this mainstream culture that, and the culture is not accepting you. Even the Pharisees said, oh, she's a sinner. Like, in other words, we don't worry about her. We don't think about her. We're not concerned about her, but she's in distress because she sees Jesus and she sees him as a hope for her. And so she's crying out this place of brokenness. She's crying out all of her wounds, undoubtedly. She's crying out all these places at the feet of Jesus. And it becomes extremely symbolic of Jesus' ability to rescue us, right? To give us hope, that we humble ourselves and say, you know what, this is just where I am. I'm broken. I'm sad. I'm crying. I'm falling apart here. I don't have any idea of how to even come out of this situation necessarily. And all I have is this perfume in this little box, this alabaster box that's meant so much to me. But you mean more than this valuable perfume, right? You mean more than whatever dignity a person might say. Well, just get off the floor. Don't be kissing his feet and doing all that. Clearly, that her dignity didn't mean more to her than this process of letting Jesus know that he was valuable. Clearly, Jesus meant more to her than that. And this opportunity that she had with him, she wasn't going to waste. And so she anoints his feet. She wipes it with her hair. She cries out. And basically, she's blessing Jesus. And she's in this place of humility. Now, some people might assume that this has to do with degradation. Like, oh, she's being degraded because she's doing it. For one, no, she's choosing to do it. So that's one. She's not being made to do it, which would imply to be degraded. But two, not only is she choosing to take this action, but it's clearly an action of which she is blessing him. She is honored to do this regarding him. And so maybe for us, it's hard to imagine that because we see a person on the floor. We never think this is a good thing. For me, for many years, I thought, why would people people shouldn't be, groveling on the floor. This is not good. Like in my mind, the picture was something of mistreatment, but I realized that really in her mind, in her heart, in her emotions, she was probably already broken. She was probably already on the floor. You see what I'm saying? Like she was already in the lowest place that she could be in her life. And she was like hoping that this interaction with Jesus would lift her from that place, right? Would bring her into another understanding. Or maybe he already had in some way given her hope that she could be well again. I mean, this man who healed the blind and healed the lepers and healed the people who were impossible to be healed, like who had been separated and been pariahs and who had been, the tax collectors nobody wanted to deal with. He had already welcomed them and he had already accepted them. So she had a chance of being accepted and loved too. And so we see this beautiful transaction take place in the wiping of Jesus's feet with this woman's hair and anointing of it with this perfume oil and her crying out to him. And we also see then that Jesus sets a precedence in the conversation that he has with the Pharisee. And he really establishes this, that he is here for everybody. He's not just here for those people who think they're elite and they should receive him. He's here for anybody who has need of him, and he's waiting for them to come. And this woman comes, and she's just one of the people that comes. But because she's at his feet and she's made herself vulnerable, Jesus is delighted to bless her. He's delighted to help her, and he's delighted to defend her. And he tells the Pharisee the truth in this situation, that I might be an honored guest for you, but for me, this is my honored guest. She has honored me, and I am more gracious for what she has done to me than even you, this elaborate feast, all the money that you might be spending. She is showing me that who I am is valuable to her. And that's kind of important. And I want us to end our devotional with this thought. Is who Jesus is to you important? Like him, who he is, what he represents, is that important to you? Is that valuable enough for you to maybe look like you're losing your dignity in order to receive him, in order to accept him? Can you find yourself pouring yourself out to him and wanting him so much? Women are crazy about their hair. Women, could you imagine wiping somebody's hair with your feet? I don't know about that. And they wouldn't have been necessarily clean, because we talked about yesterday how the culture they need to clean your feet as you come in. So I don't know if they're clean yet, or if she did this before they were washed. But at some point she takes her hair and she wipes his feet. How does that feel to you? Do you feel ever that you need God so much that it doesn't matter which way you got to reach him, what you have to do to help him understand that you want him? Have you ever been in that situation? It's something to contemplate and something to consider. So I want to invite you to read this passage in Luke. Remember, it's Luke, the 7th chapter. I read from the 36th to the 40th verse, but you can enjoy the entire passage. See if you find yourself and what you think about your position at the feet of Jesus. And until tomorrow, please be blessed. Know that we're praying for you. We hope that you're praying for us. And we'll see you again tomorrow with another of our devotionals. Goodbye.